Hey there, my name is Natasha, and for this video, I will be showing you how to build and decorate my tea time caramel London fog cake. This recipe can be found on my website, coconibs.ca. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest under the name @coconibsca. The first thing we're going to do is cut our cakes. You can eyeball this or use a ruler to be more exact. Using a paring knife and ruler, make a mark on the cake where you want to cut the top off. You can make multiple marks around the cake at this measurement. Grab a large serrated knife, line it up with one of the marks, and start to cut in a circular and across motion, moving from mark to mark. Make sure to keep your knife as level as possible. You can do some touch-ups on the cake to make it more level. Repeat this same process to cut the cake into 2 layers. Then repeat all of the steps with the second cake. For the next part, I like to put a slightly damp paper towel under my cake board to help keep it from sliding around. Place your cake board on the turntable and put a dollop of icing in the center. Put your first cake layer onto the cake board and press down. The first and last layers of the cake should be the bottoms of the original 2 cakes that you started with. Dab on your simple syrup using a pastry brush. Make sure to get as close to the edge as possible, as that is where the cake is the most dry. Put a spoonful of caramel on the cake and spread it around to cover the whole layer. Next, use a piping bag and the number 808 piping tip to pipe a circle of buttercream around the edge of the cake. Continue in a spiral motion to fill the rest of the layer. Use an offset spatula to smooth out the buttercream. Keep the spatula as level as you can by putting the end closest to the handle in the center of the cake. Hold the spatula still at a 45-degree angle as you spin the turntable with your other hand. Place the next cake layer on top, then add your simple syrup. For this layer, we're going to add a caramel filling instead of a caramel base. Pipe 2 circles around the edge of the cake with that number 808 piping tip, then fill the center with the caramel sauce. It's important that your caramel is at room temperature, otherwise the cake will not be very stable and the layers will slide around. You want the caramel to be lower than the buttercream piped around the edge, because when you add your next layer, you will press it down and won't want caramel oozing out the sides of the cake. Place the next layer on top and repeat the steps from the first layer. Finally, add the last layer on top. Using your offset spatula, spread any buttercream that's hanging out the sides around the cake. Next, grab that piping bag and pipe a small amount of buttercream around the cake in a zigzag motion. Spread the icing around the cake with your offset, focusing on completely covering the bottom and creating a lip around the top. Smooth out the icing with your scraper by holding it at a 45-degree angle in one hand and spinning the turntable with the other. Add some icing to the top of the cake and begin pulling in that top lip as well. Spread the icing evenly around with your offset spatula. Do one final turn with your scraper and pull in the top with your offset. After each time you pull your offset spatula in, wipe it clean with your cloth before going back to pull in the top some more. Using a paring knife, scrape away any crumbs or icing on the cake board, then wipe it clean with a cloth. Put the cake in the fridge for at least 20 minutes or until the buttercream has formed a crust. For this next part, you will want to make sure your buttercream is smooth and whipped up, so I suggest mixing it on low speed while the cake is cooling in the fridge. Grab your piping bag and number 808 piping tip and start piping around the outside of the cake. Fill in any empty spaces as needed. Using your offset spatula, pull the icing upwards on the cake, starting at the base. You will want to create a lip at the top of the cake as well. Start smoothing everything out with your scraper, paying close attention to the angle that you have your scraper at. Keep the scraper at that nice 45-degree angle to smooth the icing out without scraping too much of it off. Fill in any uneven places with more icing. You can even pipe a ring around the top to make sure you get that nice lip. Do a few more spins with the scraper to get things really smoothed out. Add some more buttercream to the top of the cake and pull in that lip as well. Smooth the top out with your offset spatula and make sure that the top is level. Give it a final scrape, then pull the top edge in. Finally, clean up your cake board and pop the cake in the fridge for at least 20 minutes. Now it's time for the fancy piping. Grab your ruler and a toothpick. We're going to start with the loops and make them 2 inches long. Just line up your ruler without touching the cake and make marks with your toothpick every 2 inches. Using the number 3 piping tip and firm pressure, begin piping. Start at one marking and slowly move your piping bag to the next, letting the icing fall into a loop. This motion will take a lot of practice, so don't be discouraged if you need to redo some loops or it doesn't turn out exactly how you want it to the first time. Repeat with a second layer of loops on top of the first. You can use a toothpick after piping the loops to slightly adjust them to make them more round if needed. Next, using the number 18 piping tip, we're going to make the teardrops. Start by piping a small dot of icing underneath where the loops connect with each other, then drag it upwards while releasing all pressure. For the hearts, use the number 21 piping tip. Similar to the teardrops, you're going to pipe a dot of icing, then drag downwards at an angle while releasing all pressure. Pipe a second one next to the first, but drag it down in the opposite direction, creating a heart shape. Grab that number 3 piping tip again and pipe 3 dots in a vertical line directly below the teardrops, but start them about halfway down the hearts. For the frills, use the number 125 tip with the open side at the top. Hold your bag at 45 degrees and start piping a skirt around the base of the cake. Move your bag slightly from side to side to create ruffles. Repeat with another skirt layer on the bottom, then repeat it on the top of the cake but with only one layer of frills. For the top of the cake, use the 1M tip in the same motion that you used for the teardrops and hearts around the top edge of the cake. Finally, use the number 69 tip to create another layer of ruffles inside the 1M piping. And of course, this cake would not be complete without some glitter. If you have edible glitter, give it a sprinkle over the entire cake. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're currently enjoying the amazing cake that you just made. See you next time.